Good morning. I would like to begin today's meeting by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we are gathered and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to the City Planning, Economic Development and Environment Committee of the 20th of March 2025, and I declare the meeting open at 9 a.m. I'd like to advise attendees in the room that this meeting is being webcast and audio recorded. I note Councillor Bannon's in the room. Councillor Fraser, he's just running a bit late, is he? Okay, that's fine. And Councillor St Ledger? Do we know it's running late? Okay, well, hopefully he'll arrive soon. Okay, so I note that everybody is in the room, so there are no leaves of absence. So I will move on to the confirmation of the previous committee minutes. There is now a motion displayed on the screen that the minutes of the City Planning, Economic Development and Environment Committee meeting on the 12th of February be confirmed. Do I have a mover? Councillor Murphy. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hall. All those in favour? Has been passed. Without, I still don't have Councillor St Ledger or Councillor Fraser in the room. Okay, where are we? Declarations of the conflicts of interest. I now referred to conflicts. Do any councillors wish to declare a conflict? There being none, we'll move on to general business. Does anyone have any general business for the Health, Climate and Conservation Manager, Mr. Brett Esbenson? Brett, do you have any for us?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I do not.
Oh, wonderful. You have a great day. Councillors, do we have any general business for the Waste Resource and Recovery Manager, Mr. Michael Asnakar? Michael, do you have any for us?
No, not today, Madam
No,
Chair.
wonderful. I'll let you get back to your day. Thank you. All right, let's get stuck into the reports. We have 3 reports today, and we'll begin with item 6.1, the proposed Logan Plan endorsement for resubmission for state interest review. I note 6.1 is a public report, and I'll now refer to the City Planning Program Leader, Mr. Christian Parks, to please speak to the report.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, councillors. So to compensate for a very lengthy report package, we have a brief PowerPoint which I'll walk you through this morning. It's on the wall behind us. Okay, so this slide provides a nice, simple 5-year snapshot of the project. You can see we started in 2022, and the councillors that were here at the time remember the council workshops. There was endorsement of some of those early council positions, and that rolled forward as we prepared the scheme. A lot of last year, which I'll touch on a little bit later, revolved around working with the state government. What I want to focus on today is 2025. You can see that we've just completed, or you'll remember we've completed a round of council 101s this year. We had an informal council workshop approximately 2 months ago. So really the big focus for us today is to get the scheme endorsed so that we can proceed to public consultation at the end of this year. And you can see if that all rolls forward as we hope it does. We want to commence the scheme in late 2026. Something to highlight before I move on to the next slide is that whilst this is endorsement of the scheme to go back to the state, it's not the last touch point for you as councillors. You know, in addition to any one-on-ones and briefings that'll occur over the next 18 months, there'll also be at least...
Can I interrupt you for 1 sec, CP? Sorry, Madam Chair, point of order. So it's been brought to my attention by the CEO that Councillor Bradley has flagged that she's got gastro and that it could be infectious. I'm just concerned that not all councillors are aware of that, and that's why I'm sitting down this end. And just want to understand what measures are being taken to keep the rest of us and the staff safe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Bradley, would you like to respond?
Thank you. Actually, you may have noticed yesterday I left the meeting a couple of times, so probably I was contagious yesterday and possibly not today. But I didn't sleep very well last night because I was up in the middle of the night, and hence why I sent an email very early this morning asking to go on Teams and was denied that request. Hence I'm here.
Deputy Mayor Bannon?
As part of the meeting code, you can't Teams in to be sick. Otherwise, Councillor Russell would have been permitted to Teams in the last round of the committee because I think you were sick and you couldn't Teams in because the meeting code says it's got to be something a lot more important than that. I'm concerned about the infectious part about gastro, especially for the rest of the room. I think that's where a leave of absence should be taken.
Yeah, Councillor Bradley.
If you Google gastro, you will not be contacting my bodily fluids, and probably will have been contagious yesterday and not today. Thank you.
Doesn't make it. You shouldn't have come yesterday then.
Councillor Russell?
I'd just like to clarify, I have actually attended a committee meeting through Teams before due to health.
That was before it happened with Councillor Herrera that we realised what was in the governance. That's when it got changed.
Can I just mention one thing? So last time with Councillor Russell, I contacted Robert, and then I was referred to the city solicitor and was advised that under the meeting code, illness does not fall under the current definition of exceptional circumstances. And I agree it's something that we maybe need to look at through the meeting code. I understand that it's actually under review, but at this stage, the legal advice was that, you know, we can't join via Teams because of the meeting code. So that was the advice I was given. Mayor Rabin.
No, I appreciate that, and I understand that Councillor Bradley's in a difficult position because she wants to participate, but the meeting code doesn't allow her, which I think totally needs to be fixed, and that's why that review is happening, because it would be much preferable to have her either upstairs in her office or working from home and teamsing in the interest of everyone's health and well-being. I just wanted to make sure that councillors who are sitting beside her were aware, because you could accidentally come into contact with something that Councillor Bradley has touched, that's all.
Thank you, Mayor Rabin. Okay, I will proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just to pick up the last point I was about to make, there's still at least 2 formal touch points from councillors. So whilst this is an endorsement, we're seeking to send the planning scheme back to the state. We will be bringing it back once after public consultation when we respond to those submissions, and again before it's formally adopted. So I just want to provide that comfort early on. So the last 12 months was spent as part of the state interest review, working through 3 information requests from the state government. So you can see those on the screen there, and the last one was only at the end of the year. So some of the later ones resolved around the South East Queensland Regional Plan and some of the updates that the state were looking for us to make in that regard. We're confident that we've worked through all of the issues raised by the state. There's been lots and lots of meetings, and we believe that once we push this back to the state, they'll be able to proceed fairly quickly to finalise their review, and we're hopeful that we'll get their approval to go on consultation. We're hoping that that consultation will be around the middle of this year. So just to go into a little bit of detail, and this is material that was presented to council as part of an informal workshop about 2 months ago. The state are really happy with the approach the organisation's taking with terrace housing as a new housing product for Logan. They've asked us to increase the areas of the city that are available. So you can see there it's increased slightly from 3.4 to 4.1% of the land in the urban footprint. So that's a small extension that the state of directors asked to take with regard to terrace housing. The other one, which we had a lot of negotiation with the state, was around dual occupancy. And they were asking us to reduce that minimum lot size, as you can see on the bottom of that slide there. You might recall that wasn't something that was had a lot of wholesale support when we discussed it previously. So we went back to the state, and I'm pleased to say that we had a small win in regards to that negotiation. So the state have agreed that those minimum lot sizes remain, and they're consistent with the scheme at the moment and the scheme that was presented to the state in 2023. So whilst the state spent a lot of time going through the scheme, the state focused on a lot of drafting matters. They spent a lot of time on state interests, which are quite relevant to themselves. What I wanted to do with this slide is just highlight that each of those policy positions that Council endorsed a couple of years ago have almost entirely been carried through without change. So we can take from that quite a deal of comfort that the planning scheme still reflects the policies that Council put forward approximately 2 years ago. So as I mentioned at the beginning, it's quite a big report package. The planning scheme itself, I think, is well over 1,000 pages, and then there's a whole lot of supporting material, planning scheme policies, public consultation strategies. So that's all wrapped into the package in front of you today as attachments. And the recommendations accompany a lot of those attachments. There's two that I want to pause on, the first one and the last one. The first one's the critical one. The proposed planning scheme be resubmitted back to the state government. So that's quite simple, but that's the key of this report. The second one I want to focus on is the last recommendation. We're actually seeking your approval for the manager of ED and CP to actually commence public consultation once we receive the minister's sign-off. The benefit of doing that is it saves us time and a little bit of money. So if we didn't put that recommendation in after the state approved it, we'd have to come back to council, put a report on an agenda and seek your endorsement. We can still do that, but that recommendation is seeking your approval to allow us to move forward a little bit more swiftly. And there's a slide coming up that talks about that consultation phase. So consultation, we want to carry that out over an 8-week period at the end of this year. That'll probably be around October, November. It'll be important for us that we don't occupy any of the school holidays. We want to give people an opportunity to look at the scheme in as much detail as they can, find out about it, and to support that, we want to do a whole range of events and activities. We want to maintain the traditional ones that people are probably familiar with and will expect. We'll be in libraries, we'll be in shopping centres. We'll talk to each of you as councillors if there's events or mobile offices that you'd like us to be at. We would like to be at those with you. And in addition to that, we want to introduce some online events. Some people aren't able to get out and about within the community, so if we can provide activities during the day or even after work, people can chime in, they can meet a planner, they can listen to material that we present in terms of what the policy means for them. So we're trying to reach as much as the community as we possibly can. This is the last slide. So just to recap, we're sort of 3/4 of the way through. The really big goal for us is to get on consultation at the end of this year. One of the simple reasons that is important is there's a general rule of thumb that you're about 12 months from consultation before your scheme can commence. So to give ourselves a fighting chance to commence next year, we really need to get on consultation at the end of this year. So a lot of that depends on the state government, but we'll certainly be doing everything we can to keep the pressure on them and make sure that we've answered all their questions satisfactorily. So again, thank you for your time, not just this morning, but through the project to date. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Christian. Do I have any questions? Got Mayor Raven, then Councillor Lane, then Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, CP, great work. And when I was reading through the request for information that was coming from the state, I was really impressed with how strongly your team pushed back on a lot of different positions. Having never been through that part of the process before, so I hadn't seen what that looked like. I don't know if we normally push back strongly to defend the policy positions that council has taken, but I really appreciated it. And I was a bit surprised actually at the lack of understanding that the state had around issues like reducing the unlimited height in Springwood and Beanleen, the impact that was having on the cost of land, which directly impacts how viable developments are. it's frustrating to see that they pretty much ignored the economics of it and just said, well, there's no reason to do it. And I understand that you basically have to keep fighting for months to try to get them to change their mind on that, because they were pretty close-minded on it. I would have appreciated if they were more open to that, especially given that we've now got a Conservative government that's generally more economically focused. So I was surprised by that one. There was lots of issues that got raised, and my important focus was understanding that the policy positions in principle that Council had adopted were maintained, and that was great to see that you'd done that. And also that the strategic framework, super important, and because every time we get an appeal, the strategic framework becomes the basis for which everything else gets assessed from afterwards. And so I spent a fair bit of time going through that, and I just wanted to say thank you very much. I thought it was an excellent piece of work, and very excited to see what happens with the public consultation. I do just have one question around Forestdale, which I'm sure Councillor Fraser will be interested in as well. There's a group of residents in Forestdale who are concerned about the interface between state planning legislation, our planning scheme, and federal environmental protection, which I know is a very complicated space. I was just trying to understand if we'd incorporated anything that addresses those concerns, because there's conflicts between all those different levels of protection, and simplifying it so that the expectations of the scheme, which have an environmental focus, can be realised, because at the moment you can pretty much loophole your way to clear quite large blocks completely without paying any offsets whatsoever if it's for a dwelling. And I don't think that's the intention of the scheme or the legislation. So, but have we actually introduced anything to address that yet, or will we need to do that through the public submissions?
Through the Chair, thank you, Mr Mayor. That'll need to be dealt with through the submissions. That space around clearing of vegetation, as you alluded to, it's profoundly complicated. You've got federal, state and local legislation overlapping, which makes it difficult to draft and for people to move through it. And also a lot of those clearings also exist in things such as the building code, so it even sits outside that planning framework. But Councillor Fraser has raised that his residents in that area will be very interested, so that'll be a focus of us through that consultation phase.
Thank you, Mayor Raven. I have Councillor Lane.
Through you, Madam Chair. Overall, I've read it cover to cover. And there's some things that I agree with, some things that I don't, but I really appreciated having a meeting yesterday to discuss concerns over my local park and my local footy club, and adjustments that will happen to the actual documents relating to those. The standing up for our residents is why we're here. Standing up for them and making sure that their needs are met is why we're here. And I just hope that when this is done and dusted, that state looks at it reasonably and says there is opportunity for us to actually recalibrate how we do our suburbs. I think that's a really important step forward for us, and I appreciate the work that's gone into it. I just have some concerns, I suppose, when it comes to the ambition for my division. So, yeah. Thank you very much for your hard work, and thank you so much for coming and speaking with me yesterday. I know it's not always easy when someone's really digging in and saying, but I want this and I want this. And Mr Radich, thank you very much for your email. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. I have Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, through the Chair. And I want to first start by thanking sincerely Christian and his team for meeting with me quite frequently, and for the Director for his emails, which confirmed my memory of events from way back. My major concern is around the street parking. My area is earmarked for a lot of changes, and as you are aware, not everyone is in the mode of going public transport only and walking only. They're still car driven. So I just have concerns and hesitation, but I'm sure the community will have their say and they will express it. Yeah, I do have concerns mostly around the parking and in my opinion, no real clear way of dealing with that.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Do we have any other questions? No? Anything further, Dad? No? Okay, we have a PowerPoint that we have to table. Do I have a mover? Councillor Murphy, we don't need a seconder. All those in favour? Councillor Wilcox, for the tabling of the PowerPoint? Yeah, that's all right. That's been passed unanimously. Okay, and waiting on a motion. Might just get you to scroll through because it's quite a big one, please. Sure, absolutely, Councillor Lane.
Just on the consultation, is that weekend consultation as well as weekday? Just checking. Thank you.
Through the chair, yes, it will be.
Okay, all the way through. Okay, we have a mover. Deputy Mayor Bannon, seconder, Mayor Raven. All those in favour? Okay, can we just go around the room, please, and can you indicate how you voted? Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, through the chair. I wish to abstain, noting that what I stated before, I feel there is no real clear direction around dealing with parking issues.
Okay. Councillor Lane?
I'm for sending it back to state.
Councillor Russell?
I'm for. I'm very excited to move on to community consultation soon.
Councillor St Ledger?
I'm just a plain old 4.
Councillor Jackson?
4.
Councillor Hall?
4.
Mayor Raven?
5. Sorry, 4.
Councillor Fraser?
4.
Councillor Jeremiah?
Against.
Councillor Bannon?
4.
Councillor Wilcox?
I'll abstain with a reason, please. I would encourage residents of the City of Logan to, when consultations are available, to please go and have your say and push it back to state. Thanks.
Councillor Murphy? 4. And I'm also 4. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you, Christian. We will now move on to item 6.2, proposed memorandum of understanding with Urban Development Institute of Australia, Queensland. I note that 6.2 is a public report, and I'll now refer to the Economic Development and City Planning Manager, Mr. David Radich, to please speak to the report.
Through the chair, and good morning, councillors. So the report proposes that we enter into a memorandum of understanding, which is a non-legally binding document with the Australian Urban Development Institute. This is really solidifying an existing agreement that we have with the Urban Development Institute of Australia. We meet with them regularly. We advocate for the same things, and we see that, so they propose this memorandum of understanding. We see some benefits in entering into this memorandum of understanding, so we can perhaps do some joint advocacy. And it's particularly important as we head into the consultation on the planning scheme, where the industry can get quite mobilised, that we have an agreement like this in place to make sure that we have open lines of communication. We understand their issues and they understand our policy, and we could do some joint advocacy together. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Dave. Do we have any questions? Mayor Raven.
Not a question, just a comment around the joint advocacy, especially with the state increasing that target for terrace housing above our desired level. It's so important that we be able to do that with industry, to say we need public transport before we're expected to approve very small lots, because that's what terrace housing ultimately is. So I think this is really good.
Thank you, Mayor Raven. Okay, we have a motion on the board. Do we have a mover? Mayor Raven, seconder. Deputy Mayor Bannon, all those in favour? It has been carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Okay, do we have any general business for Dave? No, Dave, do you have any for us?
Through the chair, no, I do not.
Okay, wonderful. You have a great day. Thank you. All right, let's move on to item 6.3, bonding of works policy review. I note that item 6.3 is a public report, and I would now refer to the Development Engineering Program Leader, Mr. Eddie Denman, to please speak to the report.
Through the chair, I'll take the report as read. However, I'd just like to highlight some key takeaways from the report. The first one is that Council has a bonding of works policy to ensure that we have funds held against the delivery of assets that occur by a developer during the construction of a development. For example, if a developer should fail to deliver a detention basin, Council would have funds to deliver that critical piece of infrastructure. The second one is why we've looked at increasing Council's bonding of works policy. The current policy was approved in 2019, and over the last 5 to 6 years, the construction costs have gone upwards of 50%. So we're really not recovering the actual cost associated with delivering an asset, which is critically important that we have those funds that we can deliver them. And the third one is we've done quite a bit of consultation with branches internally and external stakeholders, and that includes bodies like the UDIA. We also dealt with our subcommittee where we deal with engineering consultants to get their feedback about our proposed increases, and they acknowledged that they accepted that Council was reacting to the cost of construction delivery as the driver for it, and it was important because these increases will directly impact developers. It's only going to apply to new developments that are approved should the policy be endorsed. It won't be applied retrospectively. And also we engaged with other South East Queensland local governments, and they gave us feedback in relation to what they're doing with their own bonding policies, and they're also reviewing theirs related to construction costs that have occurred. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie. I have Councillor Lane.
Thanks very much, and thanks for the report. I was reading, I was like, this is super cool. How much has Council had to pick up the tab when developers go bust and they haven't done their infrastructure and we've only got 10% or 5%?
We've had quite a few where developers have gone into liquidation. Unfortunately, we've had a few developers over the years. It's upwards of around $300,000 because we've had developments where the developers just walked away, but it's like a critical infrastructure basin. A detention basin, for example, can cost upwards of $100,000 to deliver. So we've had to go in and fix a few jobs where we've had driveway crossovers. There's been a good example where a developer, the bond we held was upwards of $15,000, but to do the actual works was like $50,000, and they just turned around and said, well, Council can keep the bond, we don't want to do the works. So we don't want those situations to occur. So we need to make sure we've got the right amount of bonds so the developer is keen to get that bond money back and they will actually deliver the assets.
So, and that's what I was thinking about this is we take 15 grand, but it costs us 300 grand to fix something. So ratepayers are paying for developers' finishing touches. Is there a way to make this greater than what we're looking at doing today? Thanks, Stephen.
Yeah, through the chair. In terms of the bonding works policy, you might have noted in some of the detail that what we're actually doing is collecting 150% of the costs. So it is exactly right. We've had these significant increases in the cost of whether it be labour or materials, so upwards of around 50% around some of those services. And actually I saw that again, some further of those increases when I went to a UDIA presentation only yesterday where they were talking about that. So this is a really important change to policy. Since 2019, we've had COVID, and that's really when these things started escalating. So Eddie's moved really quickly to ensure we can update this policy. It does take a little bit of time to do it because it's a policy. It's not just some sort of fact sheet or document over here we can quickly tidy up. So he's done the work, he's done the consultation, he's made sure our customers in the industry aren't going to blow up when we make these changes, so they actually understand, they recognise it, and he's benchmarked it against other SEQ councils to minimise any adverse reaction to escalating these costs, because there always is the risk when we're dealing with something like this where we've got a lot of talk about cost of living pressures and housing affordability. So we need to take the time to do it right, do the right consultation, so that we don't get drawn into some sort of conversation about, oh look, here's council sort of affecting housing affordability. So that's why we took the time. But as I said, the work that Eddie's done has made sure that we're collecting 150% of the cost of that infrastructure, which will really deal with some of those issues from the past.
Yeah, thanks for that. My thing was exactly that, which is housing affordability for the ratepayers that are already here that have had to pick up the bills. So that's where I asked the questions. It's not the future ratepayers, it's the ones that are sitting here picking up $300,000 bill with only a $15,000 bond on it. So 150%, that's why I asked these questions, just to clarify, so that the one person watching at home actually understands that we are trying to save existing ratepayers money by not doing this. So it's wonderful. Thank you.
Through the chair, and you're exactly right. And we just need to remember that that bond, which is 150%, gets returned to the developers if the work is done properly. So it's only really where the work is done poorly. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. I have Mayor Raven and Councillor Wilcox.
Councillor Lane asked and answered my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Raven. I have Councillor Wilcox.
Thank you. Similar line to where Councillor Lane was going. What happens to those developers who do the wrong thing and then they want to come back and do another development?
Through the chair, that's a really interesting question. So in terms of the bond, so we actually calculate what through a quantitative surveying kind of exercise as to what the actual bond would be. So then we are able to apply the 150%. So even if they were to come back in and do the wrong thing again, we've got 150% of the cost of actually fixing that piece of infrastructure. So that's how we can manage the risk. One of the challenges we've got is like anybody can lodge a development application with council. So we can't sort of say, oh, well, ex-developer, you didn't do the right thing last time, so we're not going to accept your application or we're going to refuse to deal with you. All we can do is manage the risk of that, and that's why we don't charge a bond of 100%. We actually charge a bond of 150%. And the reason why we've got the challenge today is because there was that huge escalation in costs. Like if the escalation in labour and construction material costs was, for instance, I don't know, 5% in any given year, the policy would keep up with it because it's 150%. But when you have a jump over the period of 12 months of, say, 50%, it just wipes out that difference between 100% and 150% in the bond. And that's why we've needed to make this correction.
I'd just like to see if we have, and there's always going to be the odd minority that do the wrong thing, and if they are coming back to do developments time and time again, whatever it may be, and if they're doing the wrong thing by us, I'd like to see that 150% escalate just a little bit more as a bond and go, you need to do the right thing, because I've constantly got stuff, and I know mine are really old DA approvals and stuff like that, which doesn't really help, but I just think if we can, bring down that naughty stick, and we've got to get that little bit tougher with them and that sort of thing. Yes. But just another thing, I'm not sure if Mark Pearce is still here, if he's gone, but just wondering, we're sitting in a policy committee review at the moment, and this one didn't come up, and I think this one would have been a great one for us to get into and actually get nitty-gritty with and that sort of thing before it came to committee. So I'm just wondering why it didn't hit that review.
Yeah, that's a really good question. As I was saying before, the cost of construction and labour has gone up significantly. We're a high growth council, so if we were to wait until that policy review period, we'd have further developments coming through and further application of a bond that would be below the actual cost of material. So we actually spoke to them about that, and they agreed that the best thing to do would be to bring this forward to manage council's risk.
Thank you, Councillor Wilcox. Any further questions? No? Okay, we have a motion on the board. Do I have a mover? Deputy Mayor Bannon, do I have a seconder? Councillor St Ledger, all those in favour? It has been carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Eddie. I now wondering whether anyone has any general business for the Development and Assessment Manager, Mr Stephen Ball. Councillor Bradley.
Thank you. I want to thank you sincerely for dealing with a matter last week. Thank you.
Stephen, do you have any for us?
Through the chair, no, I don't.
Wonderful. You have a great day. All right. With nothing further, that concludes the agenda for today. Does anyone have any general business for Director of Growth, Economy and Sustainability, Mr David Hanson? Dave, do you have anything for us?
Yeah, through the chair, I've just got a quick couple of thanks. Item 6.1, the scheme, we're not there yet, but this is a huge milestone today to send that back to the state. to councillors and to the mayor, I've seen the way that you've all engaged in this process. It's blown my mind at the kind of time that you've set aside to meet with my team, and the way that you've engaged constructively. These are not easy decisions. This is the biggest policy piece of work that we do as a council. So, and I'm very mindful of the fact that I think it's only Councillor Bradley who's been through this process before now. So just a huge thanks. We'll be relying on you some more between now and the end, especially through the community consultation phase, to get to the right people and make sure we do it at times and in a way that's meaningful. To my team, just incredible. The way that they, I think as the Mayor said, fought the good fight on the things that really matter to us. We can't end up with a generic planning scheme that is just full of state level sort of goals and aspirations. We have to localise it to the things that are important to Logan and our residents. So I see them do that work every day. They're trying desperately to hang on to a program of work that gets us there in 2026, even though we were hoping originally for 2025. But that relationship, I think, with the state is as good now as it has been at any point in the past, and that is through the way that they have sort of dealt with these things on an evidence base and with a tone that I think is just really capable of building good relationships with the state. So thank you to them and all of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, I now declare the City Planning, Economic Development and Environment Committee meeting of the 20th of March concluded at 9:36, and the City Lifestyle meeting will commence in 10 minutes at 9:46. Thank you, councillors.